that they're making a comment.
Oh, perfect.
You're just looking at.
We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome, my name is Lois Meyer, and I want to welcome everybody, those of you in Albuquerque and New Mexico, and those from around the country that have joined us for this important presentation. Some are present here in the room and others are on Zoom. And I welcome all of you to this very important session on scam lessons that can be learned about scammers of all kinds. We all know that scammers hit us daily on our phones, on our email, in the mail, through social media, on our credit cards, etc. All of us have received calls, texts, emails, letters, you name it, from scammers. And many of us have come close to being scammed, and some of us, including myself, have fallen for scammers' threats and stories. Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, FBI, and Secret Service task force officers have told me that they receive at least one scam report every day, and many scams are never reported. We're very grateful for all of you who have come today to educate us about how to protect ourselves from scammers of various kinds. The session, I hope I have this right. I got most of my information from Sergeant Kyle Woods back here, who now tells me that he may not be as directly as involved, but Sergeant Woods from the FBI and Secret Service Task Force operations for Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. And also we have with us two of his team, Detectives Justin Bishop and Waylon Proctor. In addition, we have some unexpected guests that we're very pleased to welcome. Ms. Beatriz Medina from the New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department, Credit Union Industry Manager, and Ms. Danica Mares from Nusenda Credit Union. I'm going to ask, I've globally introduced you, but as you contribute, if you would just identify who you are so we know who you are. Our guests are very willing to discuss some of the various scams that they see, including common tactics used by scammers to build trust and gain information. The speaker's goals are to discuss how and why scammers target older generations, like a few of us present, and provide us with important tips we can employ to protect ourselves. Please understand, our session today is not intended to be an opportunity to retell our personal scam stories, nor our scam close calls. Our purpose, so we ask that you refrain from doing that. Instead, we are here to learn the important lessons these folks have to share with us. They will speak or present for about 40 minutes or so. They have a great deal to offer, so we ask that you hold your questions. If you have a question that occurs to you, jot it down, or those of you on Zoom, if you put it in the chat, we will have a Q&A at the end and invite you to share your question at that time. For those of you here at La Mesa, there is a light lunch. I think some of you are already enjoying that. We ask you to enjoy it quietly while we begin. Okay. Now, thank you.
Who's first?
You want me to go?
Yeah.
All right. So how do we get our PowerPoint up so everyone can see
Okay,
it?
you want that one?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. There.
That's probably more interesting than my big head here on the screen. So
Is there any sound to it?
no, there's not
Okay.
that. And so I guess the folks can see this. It helps me out because I like to move around a lot when I talk. And I give presentations. So you all have to bear with me.
Just so you have a mic by this computer.
This is the mic.
So I'm gonna stick close to here.
Yep.
All right, I'm stay right here. Try not to. All right. So my name is Waylon Proctor. I'm a detective with the Sheriff's Department, and I'm also a federal task force officer, which means that I have the privilege of being sworn federally as well as here locally in the state. Why that's a big advantage is because it allows us to pursue federal charges on any type of fraudsters or any other criminals that do crimes that are large enough to basically be charged on a federal level. Gives us more tools to work with and actually helps us, thank you, actually helps us make sure that we get some of these guys prosecuted because we are pretty much overwhelmed with all these types of fraud. We currently have been working with the United States Secret Service. We will be moving over to the FBI just to be able to use our resources better with it. All the crimes I do, as you can guess, have to do with fraud. That's why you guys are kind of stuck with me. We already kind of told you who is here. We have New Mexico FISOA, NUSENTA, and the Sheriff's Department. We're going to be the ones that are kind of like hosting all this stuff and answering your questions. So that's who I am. I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourselves. You want to wait till later? Looks like they're going to make me talk. All right. So I will make sure I can go to
Try
the
this
next one.
Try this one. No, that didn't work. I don't know how you set it up, so,
Maybe that helps. All right.
okay.
So this is what we're going to talk about today. All right.
We're gonna move this out so you have a little bit.
Oh,
of the
thank
other
you.
there.
Trying to sit next to the mic. We're going to talk about the different types of fraud that are very common, the ones that we see the most. And these might be the ones that you guys have had some sort of interaction with, whether it's your own personal fraud story or something that's just you guys nearly missed being a victim of, right? So of course, identity theft is a big one. We're going to talk about internet frauds, which have to do with any type of malware or viruses that you can get on your computer through some nefarious means. Customer service numbers via Google and other search engines, phishing emails. Then we're going to talk about phone calls, which is something that Ms. Matas and I are working on pretty closely together when it comes to what they call spoofing. I'll tell you what that means. Solicitation, customer service call scams, which you guys might have had one way or the other, and phishing calls or texts. All right. I'll also talk just briefly about romance scams and fear and pressure scams. So those are going to be the things that we're going to cover today as thoroughly as we can in the short amount of time that we have. Y'all with me? Y'all game? You promise? All right, let's go. You guys like that, all right? So the first one is going to be identity theft. Who here knows what identity theft is? Who's had some sort of situation of their own where they were a victim of identity theft? So a few of you, right? There it goes. All right, so this is how it works. There are multiple ways that you guys can have your identity stolen. All right, lots of times, what we see a lot of is people can break into your mailbox or into someone else's mailbox where you might have sent a check or something like that. And they will take the information that they stole and they will manipulate it into a way that they can find a way to gain some sort of financial benefit from it. So if you send a check to somebody in the mail, or you receive a check from somebody in the mail and you don't have a secured mailbox, somebody can break into it and they'll take it. All right. Or even if you have some of those big lock boxes where there's multiple mailboxes in those, sometimes we have situations where those get broken into and people steal all that. They can also get your personal identifying information, which could be like your name, date of birth, social security number, and they'll take all that information and they'll somehow manipulate it into creating a fake ID or other fake checking accounts, and they'll find ways to manipulate that as well. So that's one of the big ones that they have. Another way that they'll do it is, you're awesome, thank you, is they'll either call you or they'll email you and they'll find ways to ask you for your personal information, and they'll just kind of are very good con artists, and they'll be able to gain that from you. All right, so they can happen through email, a text, or a phone call. All right, and pretty much other ways that they can compromise your devices like your phone or your computer, or you might accidentally download something that you didn't mean to or shouldn't have, and they can start stealing all that type of personal identifying or bank information that way. And they'll, of course, take it, manipulate it so they can get some sort of financial gain. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right, here's the what. When you do like any type of, you did this, Cal, right? So forgive me if I'm wrong. Did you do this one? You want to try to take this one?
I can talk.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Detective Justin Bishop. I'm Wayland's partner. I've only been in the unit for a couple months, so I'm very brand new in this, so I'm coming up to speed with the.
But a detective for, or a deputy for 10
Right.
years?
No, that's it. Almost 8.
That's what I
almost 8
think.
years.
Almost 8, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
so-
you hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not new to law enforcement. I'm just new to detective lifestyle. So we're just going to be covering as far as the identity theft on what they can do with your identity. They can change. I'm working a case right now where this lady was a victim of actually having her driver's license changed and mailed to another address. And what these people did was they're opening like PNM service using her ID and things of that sort. And this lady's getting notified that, her driver's license that she has right now is no longer valid. So she's having a really tough time trying to get a new driver's license and stuff like that. So they can actually go to MVD and get a whole new license issued for themselves for their own use. And obviously we have people using, your credit cards at, various stores around Albuquerque and stuff like that. And people, they ask for your ID, and if they have, a brand new ID, and they can present themselves as you. Like I said, I already went over the utility accounts, and then same things, they're issuing checks. If you were the victim, they're issuing it under your name, and they're depositing it into an account and trying to withdraw the money. So if you have an account with, say, Nusenda, these fraudsters are going in to Nusenda, cashing a check to your actual account and then withdrawing it. So it's actually impacting your own account that way.
Can I just remind you that we do have people on Zoom from other states,
Mhm.
so the use of abbreviations, it might be helpful to MVD, the Motor Vehicle Department,
Sure.
et cetera, so they know what we're talking
Okay.
about.
Perfect. All right.
Is that what you want?
Yeah, and so just some things to obviously protect yourself, just creating strong passwords, not using the same password for everything that you do. Never opening any links. For example, on this picture I have is actually a text message I received a few days ago saying my Netflix account was suspended. Click this link to unfreeze it, and they're coming up with all kinds of things. You'll see your Amazon account's been frozen, just generally things that we all have, Netflix, Amazon, majority of us have it. So it seems pretty legit until you click that link, and then they start getting your information, resetting your passwords, and going in there and doing some damage. Just always just monitor your credit, if you guys have any, go online. There's several resources like these packets that we have here as well. There's like Experian, TransUnion, you can always lock your credit. And I recommend doing that as well. Just unless you're applying for like a loan yourself, just keep it locked. That way these people are opening accounts and stuff under you, it's automatically flagged. And like I said, those are some free resources that you can use. And you can have it set up so it notifies your phone or your email if someone does try to open an account using your information. Let's see here. And then obviously, unless it's a trusted person, don't give your information over the phone unless you're for sure know who that person is. So you're personally identifying information, your social security number, things of that sort. Unless you're absolutely certain who that person is, it might be a good idea to do, bank transactions and stuff like that in person. I know COVID interrupted a lot of things. We were doing a lot of things over the phone, and that stuff hit us hard, but just make sure you verify that information.
I'll jump in real quick. I created this. I just wanted to say, and I'm Sergeant Kyle Woods, and I have the honor of working with these detectives. They do the magic. I just sit back and check boxes and sign things. But on the identity theft, from the financial institution standpoint, it's really important that you work closely with your bank or your financial institution if something has been compromised, and let them know this right away. You need, and please jump in if I say something wrong. You need to understand you may go to the same financial institution every day, but there might be, or when you go, but there might be other branches that someone could go into and present what appears to be a real ID. And the person at that branch may not recognize who this individual is. They're just going off of the ID. And so it's not all that difficult. We see fake IDs often. COVID did cause a transition to online services, remote, not in person. It's far easier to get an ID or a temporary ID, say through the motor vehicle department. So if you know that you are a victim of identity theft and that your personal identifying information has been taken, most, if not all, financial institutions will work with you to flag your accounts, to put in some extra checks and balances to ensure that they're verifying who it is that's in front of them. And I don't know if there's anything to expand upon with that or not.
The New Mexico Motor Vehicle Department does that as well. If you have your identity theft, that lady I was speaking about, she went to MVD and they were able to flag her driver's license. So if that person is, contacted by law enforcement or anybody else, they'll see that their identity has been flagged and they can verify that as well. And that a lot of the time, that's your suspect right there. So you identify who's using your ID right away.
That can be one of the most frustrating things is once your identity's been stolen is then the repeat use of it. And so taking those steps to have it flagged will help protect you for your own. I don't know if there's anything further you want to add to that.
Just for banking, and we have to follow specific regulations, and we have specific deadlines that we also have to meet by law. So for most financial institutions, both credit union and banks, you have to report the fraud or unauthorized transactions, activity, anything within 30 days of receiving your statement. So the date that your statement is issued is that start of that 30 days. So if you come in 6 months from now and you just noticed something happening on your account, even 60 days from now, we may not be able to give you that money back based on your fail to follow up with us.
Yeah, and with that, it's then really important. Sometimes people will say, well, I only saw a $2 charge. It was from a Google account or an Amazon account. I called the vendor or I called that company and they stopped it and reimbursed that $2. I didn't think anything else of it. The problem is the identifying information has been taken. Your financial institution needs to know so that they can keep an eye on it. So a flag can be in place so they can work with you to stop any further. We receive 30 to 35 reports a month. Many of those are just that. People saying my identifying information was compromised and I need this report to provide to my bank. And we don't have any suspect information. It's very possible we may never find that person. I know that sounds very fatalistic, but they are oftentimes operating online, often out of country. And but the bank or the financial institution can work with you in those cases if you do it in time. So just something to be aware of, take steps, even if it doesn't seem like a big deal, to protect yourself moving on.
So I would say just some of the things that we see on a regular basis is how it gets compromised. So it's not necessarily that you're clicking something or you're receiving a call. Be cautious of what you do with your mail. Even if you're throwing a birthday card away that has your address and your name on it, don't throw them in the trash. Most financial institutions and other places have shred bins that you can bring all of those items to. Old bills, things like that. If you're happening to clean out like a parent's home after they passed or anything, do not throw anything in the trash. Old check, anything like that. Dumpster diving is huge in Albuquerque still for identity theft. I would also be cautious of when you're mailing things out. Mail theft is huge. We, even with New Senda, we recently this last week had somebody try to fish checks out of the night drop. So they put, sticky paper or something on a rock and they'll feed it into the night drop and try and pull whatever they can out. They do the same thing with the blue mailbox receptacles for the post office.
Yep.
For your personal mailbox, if you put that flag up outside your home, that's an indicator that there's something in there. And the mailbox clusters get broken into all the time. So we tell our members all the time, if you're mailing something out, go physically go into the post office, drop it off inside. That way you know that it's getting where it needs to go.
I will regularly review reports of people who say, I dropped a check off at a postal box, one of the blue large boxes. And the check was a utility bill, it was a house payment, it was fill in the blank. I then get notified my check was never cashed and they're wanting me to pay the bill. Come to find out, it was in fact cashed by someone who fished it out. Take it into the post office.
And Kyle, can I just kind of, this is Beatrice Medina with the state of New Mexico. So we regulate all of the financial institutions. So I get a lot of complaints that maybe need some additional assistance. We provide resources. We can help kind of with that investigation. But the best thing for you guys to remember is deter, detect, and defend. And that's pretty much what everybody was talking about. There's ways that you can deter this fraud, which means keep your identity protected, shred your documents, be careful with what information you share. Detect, you get a free credit bureau every single year. You can call and get a free credit bureau to see if there's any unusual activity on that, and defend, right? You've got to be able to defend your identity, because we see tons of identity theft and we generally see it in general older categories. So it's important, if you feel that somebody is trying to befriend you and you're unsure of who that individual is, be cautious. If something is telling you it's not right, it probably isn't right. I investigated securities fraud and I dealt with a lot of people who lost their retirement because of trusting somebody and investing incorrectly, and they lost all of their retirement. So we're all here to assist you, but if something doesn't sound right,
It's not.
it's probably not. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just check in with people? Is everybody on Zoom hearing everyone? Can you signal if you're hearing everyone?
See some nodding yes in some ways.
Yeah, I'm hearing.
Yes, we could hear well.
Because the only mic is here.
Oh.
That's why I asked you to sort of step forward. Thank you.
I'll move forward. We're going to talk just a bit about internet-based fraud. And so this gets into malware. You've heard the term phishing. Excuse me, we call it that because if you think of the idea of casting regularly, you don't get something every cast unless you got the Midas touch of phishing on you. You're not pulling something in every time, but you're constantly going at it. This is a phishing scheme, is where they are just hitting masses of people up. Someone is going to bite the bait. And so that's what phishing refers to. And then we'll talk a little bit about fraudulent sites. Thank you so much. So very quickly, malware and viruses, this is not in depth, but it is something that's embedded in internet activity that can be via an email, that can be via a browser. So if you're searching on Google or Yahoo or Bing or whatever it is, there can be embedded malware that when clicked on starts to run in the background of your computer. And we won't go into all the detail, but it starts often pulling information. The most obvious ones will result in some type of pop-up or something that appears that it's locked your computer out, and you will get a warning that looks very real. It will startle you. Some of the ones we often see for Apple devices is your device was utilized in some type of illegal activity. You need to contact Apple support to have this stopped. They provide you a 1-800 number. You, out of fear for what your device has been used with, call that number, but it's going straight to a scammer. And I will just be very honest. It is very rarely someone who sounds like they were born and raised in the United States. Okay. I'm not trying to be prejudicial towards anyone. I'm just telling you, most of these scams are run from overseas. So just be aware of that. Sometimes they will say, hey, your computer's locked up. If you will give us remote access, we'll unlock your computer. Yes, you can give someone access to literally drive around your computer, so to speak, but they then get into everything. Rule of thumb, just never give it. It's not necessary unless you work in IT and you know someone who understands networking. Don't do it ever, period, right? And you'll protect yourself. Some of the other ones that we see is that a pop-up will say a common one is that your computer has been found to have been involved with child pornography. The FBI is going to contact you. These are the steps you need to take. Most of the time, it seems laughable because it's like, well, I think I would know if I'd come across that, but everyone freaks out, understandably, and this is that fear tactic. This is that pressure. They're trying to get you to take a step or an action that will have you then contact the scammers. So 2 things you can do. These don't usually actually control your computer. You can go on a Windows-based machine. You can go to the task manager, Control-Alt-Delete, gets you to the task manager, and you can just shut down your internet activity. So I put up here a screenshot of what that looks like. This was just my task manager day before yesterday. I would click on that Google Chrome and I would just close it. You can close down any program that's running. Sorry, nope, let me get out of your way, at least for that side. And this is what it looks like. And if you're on the internet or in your email or Outlook, you would just go in and close it down. If that's not comfortable to you, just turn it off. Just power the computer off. You can take it into a computer store. They can scan it for malware. There is software you can purchase, but you can take it to them and they can remove that malware. Okay, but it is for sure a virus. It shouldn't be on your computer. This happens by clicking on links that are in emails. There's a lot of things you can dig in to better understand this in the packet that we've presented here today, as well as in the digital packet that I sent to Ms. Meyer that you are free to send out to everybody. There's some trusted websites with some great information as to how to identify what looks like a malware or a malicious link to an unknown site. It'll say you're going to Apple, but when you hover over it, it'll show an address in the URL that goes to something completely different, and that's an indicator. So if I'm speaking French to you, that's okay. There's a site you can go to in the packet that we gave you that'll help you know what to do. Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes if I receive something that's supposed to go into my spam, but it didn't go into the spam, it went into the regular inbox, then I will pretend that I'm replying. And then when I reply, it will show different addresses. I go, okay, I don't like you.
Yeah.
And then I immediately send it to spam. That's my way of cheating and without the identity.
And I'd encourage you, don't even respond.
No,
You can right click on it and you can say send to or flag, and it'll flag it as a spam, and you don't even have to open that up at all. But that is a good point. So this is very quickly what phishing scams look like. This is a screenshot of an email that would have appeared to have come from a financial institution, in this case, Bank of America. Very quickly, if you'll go up, you'll see that there's an address that it comes from. You'll notice up at the top, it says Bank of America, and then it has this funny address, crvdgi@comcast.net. That's not Bank of America. That's clue number 1. Below that, it's going to say who it's sent to, and you'll have these undisclosed recipients. This is just broadly sent out. Moving down below, any genuine banking contact to you is going to have your information. It's not going to be this general, dear member, dear valued client, these general terms. They know who you are, and they're going to address it to you by name if it was a legitimate contact. I mentioned before that you will have a hyperlink, is what it's called. This line that says bankofamerica.com. You can literally put in anything you want when you're creating these emails. But if you just hover the cursor over it, it'll then show what you see in the yellow there on the bottom, which is the actual URL. And that goes to, in this case, some alphabet soup site. And it's It's completely unrelated to Bank of America. You probably just put a virus on your computer and they are going to start phishing for your personal identifying information. We won't go too much more into detail. There's resources, there's some good sites in the back. If you want to read up on it, what it looks like, please dig in deeper. But just be watching and looking for some of this.
Kyle.
Yes.
Yeah, I just also wanted to tell you, if you get something from a financial institution, we're not going to ask for your personal identification. We already have it. So if you release that to possible scammer, you've just provided them your information. So when you call a financial institution, there's a way that we will internally be able to identify you. So we're not going to generally ask you for information on the internet and things like that.
Just be wary of going and Googling the phone number to Bank of America or the phone number to Amazon. That is another scheme we see, is there will be fake sites that will put a phone number up and it goes to the scammers. So I would suggest, if you have a financial institution, there's probably a online login, or next time you're in that institution, make sure you have the phone number from them individually and just save that contact information to utilize in the future. Stay away from 1-800 numbers. I realize some of the larger banking institutions have them, but there is almost always a local number to a local branch that you can reach out to contact.
It's a good segue, Kyle. All right, so those of you listening, this is Detective Proctor again. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about spoofed phone numbers, all right, or frauds via telephones. One thing that's really interesting about this is going to be kind of a description of something that's been an epidemic here locally. That I've been working on a case with Ms. Matas over here, where people are spoofing phone numbers. Now, real quick, how many of you guys know what that means? What does spoofing phone numbers? Do you guys know what that means? Not many of you guys. Some of you guys. So I'm going to give you a quick little idea of what that is. All right. So did a lot of you guys know you can have phone service just over the internet? Yeah, it's called VoIPing, or voice over internet protocols. All right. So when you set up a telephone number on one of those services or through the internet, you can do this thing called spoofing, where you can program your number to look like and say whatever you want to say on someone else's caller ID. Does that make sense? So if you guys have
from myself to myself.
yeah. So I can go on, I can create a voice over internet protocol phone number. And then if I were to call you, I could program it so your caller ID says whatever I want to say. It could say Ronald McDonald, 1-800, whatever. I can have it say that on your caller ID. Now, why this is really important to some of the scams that are really, really prevalent right now in our city is they're spoofing credit union phone numbers or financial institution phone numbers. So we've had scores of people who think they're getting a phone call from their financial institution, whether it's Nusenda, whether it's another credit union here in town, or it's Bank of America, and the phone number matches the phone number. If you were to Google it, it's like, oh yeah, well, Nusenda's phone number locally is 505, whatever. Okay, and it makes it seem legitimate, right? So you answer the phone call, and somebody is pretending to be Ms. Mata's back here, or someone that works with one of the credit unions, saying, hey, you have these charges on your account. We think they're suspicious. Have you been to Mexico and spent $500 yesterday? Like, no. Like, no, what happened? And they're able to con you out of access into your account, and they'll steal your account, right? And they'll start sending money to different avenues. The biggest thing I want you to learn from this is that you might receive a phone number or even a text message from someone you think is legitimate, but it's not. All right. So I think we're gonna make this PowerPoint available to you guys. So I just kind of put like the definition of what spoofing caller ID means and how it works. All right. I kind of just told that to you guys already. So you guys, I don't want to bore you by having you read that. But I also want you to know that spoofing can happen with text messages, right? This is from my personal cell phone. These are text messages that I got, which I think is hilarious because this is my case. I'm working
Just
on
let you
these
know what
bad
you're doing.
guys and they're texting me on my personal phone. All right, but I don't have an account with Nacenda at all. So they're phishing, all right? They're trying to see, okay, does this guy have an account from Nacenda? If he does, he's gonna call me. But they can make their text message say whatever they want, right? Please call us here, or please click this link here. So that's my case, and they're texting me, they're trying to get me to be a victim. So, yeah, it's funny. I think it's pretty funny. But that's what spoofing is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when someone is contacting you, they can make it look like they're legitimate from a financial institution, either calling or texting. You with me on that? Awesome.
So I would say what we do, because this happened, so I think the last time we talked, it was at like $3.1 million, billion.
Million, it's at least, yeah.
Across the country with these types of.
Oh, billion, yeah,
fraud,
across the country.
With New Senda and the local, we're over $1 million at least in losses.
That was
because of
months
it.
ago, actually.
Yeah. So, just as like a precaution, when you are receiving a call and you do answer and it says New Senda, like Beatrice said, we have your personal information. You open an account with us. I know what your social security number is. I know what your debit card number is. We are not going to ask for that. When we are verifying you, we do send a secure access code to you. But we're going to have you verify things on the account that only you would know. So something that isn't public knowledge, right? So anything that you can't get on a statement and anything you can't look at online. So I should not be asking you, well, what was your last transaction? If I've compromised your online banking, they're going to know that, right? They're going to know that you were just at Walgreens. I'm going to ask you, do you have a joint signer on your account? That's not usually on your statement. Only the primary person's name is on the statement. I'm going to ask you what the collateral is on a loan. So on your statement, it may show mortgage or it may show auto loan, but it doesn't show the collateral. So I'm going to ask you, what card do you have? What kind of card do you have? So that way we can see it. Those are the kinds of questions that we would ask. We're not going to ask you, well, can you give me your full debit card? Can you give me the SDC number on the back? What's the CVV number? What's the expiration date? I have all that. We don't need to ask you those questions. And then if you're still unsure, if you're talking to a legitimate New Senda person, what I've been doing is, that's a great question. I'm going to go ahead and have you call our contact center, tell them this is who you're speaking with. They will transfer you to me. Call, let them know, you know what? I want to make sure I'm speaking to New Senda or whoever. Call the bank directly. And then they'll say, yes, Danica notated your account. Let me get you to her. Or no, we have not contacted you. What information did you provide? What link did you click? And then we can go from there.
Thank you. Any questions on that so far? All right, so we're kind of moving on because our time's a little bit limited, so I'm gonna jump to romance scams if you'll allow me. Gonna tell you about this really fast. I do see these scams come across our desks at least, I don't know, 3 to 4 times a year. There's probably a lot more of those that happen, but people are embarrassed to tell us or tell anybody. But typically what happens is someone who is on social media will get contacted by someone they never met. They're like, hey, I like your profile. You seem like a really awesome person. I'm into the same kind of things that you're into. And then they'll just start this relationship with you. They'll ask questions. They'll say, hey, how are you doing today? How was your day? And then after a couple of weeks, you start talking to them more and more, you're messaging them more and more. And then they try to escalate that relationship into something that seems really fast. All of a sudden, like, hey, I think I'm developing feelings for you. And they'll even start professing love really, really quickly. All right. So sometimes, people think, well, this couldn't happen. Like, this is silly. But unfortunately, this happens very frequently. Now, one of the things we promised to do that we haven't quite done yet is for you guys to understand why some of our senior citizens are really, really prevalent to be victimized by these people. One of the main reasons is because you guys generally have more money than people who are younger, right? You've had more time to accumulate it. So that's one of the things that makes you a target for them. Additionally, there are people on our senior citizen community who are lonely. All right, they don't necessarily have this awesome community that looks like you guys have, right? And they don't have anyone to talk to. And all of a sudden, there's this person giving them lots and lots of attention. And they say, I like you. Oh, you're so funny. and they profess love, and the next thing you know, it's, hey, I want to marry you. And this is where one of the keys of the scam happens. There's this, some sort of tragedy occurs, right? My car broke down, or I got arrested, or I'm stuck overseas and I can't access my checking account. Can you please send me money? And that's where the catch will happen. All right. So that's generally how these romance scams occur. And it's heartbreaking for us when we see these scams. We see some last one we had to deal with is this one woman who was very, very lonely. And I think she just liked to have the attention, right? She just liked to have someone to talk to. And it was sad to see her get taken advantage that way. So those are how the romance scams work. All right. They profess love pretty quick. They befriend you and you have no idea who they are. And they actually have pictures that aren't them, right? They're probably somewhere in West Africa or some other place outside the US. And they're just sending you little text messages, right? Or instant messages. And that's how you guys communicate more often than not. You guys have any questions on romance scams?
You just said something about grandparent scams. You know, you love your grandchildren, and I've heard of instances like that.
Yeah.
In time.
So there's situations like that will happen, and this will kind of like take some of the spoofing aspects of the phone numbers and texts and put it into social media, right? Where I've seen where people will go ahead and take screen grabs or take pictures from maybe like your grandchildren's accounts or something like that. And they'll reach out to you saying, hey, I'm stuck like in, you know, some other state or something like that. And I have a flat tire, my car broke down. Can you send me some money? And they'll make you believe that it's your grandchild. And I think I'm answering the question that you're asking, right? And they'll make you think that you're a family member or grandchild or something like that. And they'll start asking for money. And before you know it, you realize, oh, well, my grandson's here in Albuquerque and has been traveling, and well, what just happened? I've had this happen with a personal friend of mine who's into the photography business. A daughter of his friends reached out to him to take professional photographs. And he was like, oh yeah, I'd love to take photographs of you. And he's known this young lady since she was like 8 years old. Then all of a sudden she starts asking questions about, hey, I'm thinking about getting into pornography. Can I get you to take some photographs of me? And this young lady is underage, right? So my friend starts freaking out. It's like, whoa, what is going on here? And then when he starts looking into it, realizes that her social media account and her email are not the same as what he knows it to be. So that was going to be like an extortion scam at one point. So it's like, oh yeah, I'd love to take pictures of you. Then all of a sudden that person more than likely will say, hey, if you start giving me money, I'm going to tell your friends that you're trying to take naked pictures of the dog, right? So there's lots of different scams like that. Well, they'll pretend to be somebody you know to get money from.
We'll have to very quickly touch on the cards, the other stuff, and then move to questions.
Gotcha.
To kind of move forward a bit.
All right. Really fast, fear and pressure scams. We talked about that really quick. They make you afraid if something's going to happen. Also, they make you think that maybe they're from the sheriff's department, and if you don't come to us or give us money right away, we're going to come to arrest you because you had an outstanding warrant. Fear, right? Fear and pressure. So we'll get by that. All right. This is one of the last things I want to make sure you guys get. All right. This is going to be one of the things that you know for sure that's going to be a scam, is they're going to ask you for money. And this is how. They're going to want you to get them a prepaid gift card. Go to Walgreens, go to Best Buy, go to Walmart. Give me a Visa prepaid gift card, an Apple prepaid gift card, and just scratch off the number and give it to me, or take a picture and send it to me. They can take the money that way. Or they'll want you to send them money through Zelle. So there's the prepaid gift cards, right? You guys have seen those before, correct?
Mhm.
Here's some of the payment apps. They'll want you to send them money through Cash App, through Zelle, through Google Pay, through Apple Pay. The thing that's been crushing us is Samsung Pay. So if they want you to send money through one of these payment apps, not going to happen. I promise you the financial institutions are not going to ask for you to Zelle them some money or Cash App them some money. You guys with me on that?
Mhm.
The last way that they'll ask you for money is through cryptocurrency. All right. You guys starting to hear a bit more about cryptocurrency? That's another reason. Yeah. If anyone's invested in the last year, you know, it kind of is a bummer, but this is another way for them to electronically have some sort of value or money sent to them. So if anyone asks you to go, because you can do this with Cash App, with some of the payment apps, hey, just buy $500 worth of Bitcoin and send it here. All right, so if they're asking you for a prepaid gift card, to send money to them through a payment app, or to send some sort of cryptocurrency to them, it's a scam. All right, so that's one of the last things you know for sure. If they're asking you for money in any one of those type of avenues, it's a scam. You with me?
Mhm.
I would also include that if those individuals are asking you to withhold information from the credit union to ensure a wire gets released, to ensure no questions are asked, they're telling you to say it's for a family member or your niece in Singapore whom you've never met.
Home
No,
remodel.
yeah, things like that. Make sure you, because we're gonna ask you, who is this to you? Who is this person to you? And I have a lot of people, especially the elderly, they get upset. Well, it's my money. I can do what I want. Yes, but the sad fact is you could be contributing to something illegal. And in the long run, you can at some point be held liable. So most of this money goes to the scammers, but it goes to fund things like human trafficking. It goes to fund terrorism. It goes to fund all of these different scary things that we hear about. But then we're like, well, how do they fund all of these things? These are how.
And ultimately, if you are pushing the issue to have your money wired to someone else, you may tie the hands of the financial institutions to help you get that money back because it was your overt action. So if you will follow these steps and defend yourself, and if the pressure is don't hang up the phone, we think they're involved. We've seen this. Someone will say, hey, we think the bank is involved. Someone on the inside is involved. Hang up the phone.
Mhm.
It's absolutely not legitimate, but they will play on your emotions. They will play on your fear, and those pressure tactics, if they are present, feel free to mess with them. Feel free to have as much fun as you want with them. Just don't give any information. Hang up that phone. Call a family member, call a trusted friend, go to the bank with them if you're concerned about it. Walk through it. Get another perspective on what's going on.
And last thing, so I make sure we don't think all the time. The last tip I'm gonna give you guys, the very, very last tip that's also very important, I want you guys to remember, is if you did not start the contact, all right? If you did not originate the contact with this person or with this financial institution, do not trust it, all right? Only trust something that you guys started. If you started a conversation with the bank, all right, that's what you guys need to trust. Now, if someone's coming to you to talk about it, all right? And if you don't, and if someone calls you, like, no, I'm gonna call you, I'm gonna call your boss. You guys can do that. I've had people question me, like that's associated with the case with Miss Modest. Like they didn't believe I was a deputy. They wanted to call my boss or our dispatch to make sure I was real. You guys can do that. Don't trust anything that's not originated by you. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you so very much. I'm going to suggest, we have a good crowd here. It's wonderful. I'm glad everybody's come, but I'm going to suggest to see if there are any, we have a few chat things.
Just tell them, we'll send you the packet.
Yeah, we
somehow.
can send you the packet, but are there any questions for those people joining us on Zoom first? Before we take present folks, I don't see any hands or comments.
Except for thank you very much.
Yes. Are there any questions present here in the group? Yes.
Okay, wait. You have to get close enough to speak to this.
This is regarding phone calls. Nice and loud. Regarding phone calls, I got these kind of phone calls for a while, but they seem to have stopped. And it seemed like we'll get a call and somebody will say, why do you keep calling me? And it seems that they have used, it's like I think I understand from somebody else that it's like they borrow my number and then I don't understand the point of it, what they do with it, but I've had a number of those and they seem really upset that, you know, that I have called them 20 times when I have not. So what is the purpose of those calls?
That's a good question. I don't know what the context of that would be, but it sounds like they're spoofing your phone number and calling other people, right?
Like they're using my phone
Yeah.
number to used in some capacity.
So they're probably trying to use your phone number to provide some legitimacy to whatever their scam is. So it looks like maybe they're calling people in New Mexico from a New Mexico number, right? So that might be something that they're doing, but I don't know exactly why they would be doing it, but they,
If they can hide their steps. Think about it this way, when we get a case, if a phone number was used, one of the first things we'll do is try to serve legal process, a subpoena or a search warrant on the provider for that phone number to see who it's registered to see if that person's involved. So if they spoof your number and then commit some type of fraudulent or illegal act with it, if law enforcement then gets notice of this act and they say, here's the phone number that was used, they're going to maybe serve a subpoena and it's going to come back to you. Hopefully they're wise enough to see that there's going to be some type of disconnect and you're now not their suspect, but they're covering their tracks, spoofing with your information.
What seems to be consistent is would have the same prefix.
Mm.
So 11417, and so somebody said to me, a lot of people, when they don't recognize a number,
Mhm.
they will not answer the phone. But if they see the same prefix, they're more likely to pick it up.
sure.
So
Yeah, there's probably a lot of information there that we don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's probably something that's not on the up and up, but that's going on there, right? Something bad, but interesting.
Any other questions locally?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that we have, my husband and I were getting so many bogus calls on our landline that we disconnected it.
Mhm.
So I just want your take on the frequency of scams on landlines versus cell phones. Because I've gotten some texts, I've gotten we're closing your Amazon account because we suspect illegal activity, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
and you just throw those away, but boy, on the landline, it was like 20 a day. It was just all the time.
That's a great question. I don't know what those numbers are, or if there's been studies on which one's more prevalent to loan themselves as scams. What my inclination is that some of the cellular providers are really good at immediately identifying which numbers are calling out people and possibly being scams, right? So sometimes you might get the ID on your phone that says scam possible. So I think that might be one of the reasons why it's less likely. But I also think that there's less protection on the landlines, or that the number or the information for landlines has been out for so long that people are able to gain the information. Because these people are phishing, right? They're just trying to call. So that landline number just might have been in more databases that could have been hacked. There's lots of reasons why that could be. But that's what I'm
It's a good
thinking.
idea because I know we had that landline for 49 years.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have gotten rid of them.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Yes, ma'am.
Speaking to that, the increased use of scam on your cell phone.
Uh-huh.
Is it really a good idea to download these apps like robocall or whatever they're called? RoboStop,
No more robo.
No more robo.
Robo, any of those call stop apps, are they really,
I don't know.
It's
I
a
have
good idea.
no experience with those apps.
okay. I was wondering if that would open you up to some other problem.
Yeah, it could. It could be a.
We had no more robo on the landline.
Okay.
And work or didn't work.
Yeah, there's
Didn't
a
work,
couple
didn't
of them
work.
that they're touting now to download this app that will identify scam calls.
So I would suggest like you said, most people don't answer their phone, right? Just send it to voicemail. If it's something, they'll leave it and you'll call. But the ones that you know are fraudulent, or you're like, why are they calling? Or if you pick up and hear a pause or a beep,
Yes.
it's a scam call or a solicitor, right? And usually just if you send them to block, they'll stop calling you. But everyone's personal information, everyone's phone number is on the dark web in some capacity. And these people just buy them by the page loads. So if by chance you're getting bombarded at one instance for whatever reason, your phone number, your information might have been on that call log that they bought from somebody. So it comes in waves.
We become more and more suspicious of sometimes tools to help you avoid problems.
Mhm.
That tool might also create a problem. So I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that these
It could.
are
We have a call.
An online question.
Yes, Rebecca Blue Martinez is wanting to ask something. Go ahead, Becky.
You have to unmute.
No, I don't have a question. If I have a thumb up, it was when you asked, could we all hear? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, all right.
There's another.
There is another.
Betsy?
Okay.
She's finding it.
Sorry, something popped up. I have another question, and that is echoing on phones. I've had that happen when I've had phone calls where I hear other voices talking, male voices when I'm talking to a woman. And it happened on the other end of the phone the other day. What is that about?
That may or may not have anything to do with a scam. Depending on if that was a landline or a cellular phone, there's just different technologies that are used for those communications, and the wires can figuratively sometimes get crossed, and so you can just have a bad connection at times. I'd suggest you just tell the person, whoever it is you're going to hang up, and try to reconnect with them to try to end that. It could be that there's a scammer, but if you're legitimately connected to someone and you're hearing other voices, there's some sort of cross in the transmission that's unlikely to be involved. But if you're sharing personal information and that those people are in fact somehow intent on gathering it, then yes, you would have a problem. But if you hear something off, I would just hang up and try to reconnect with them.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask a Facebook question.
Yeah, one question.
Oh, do you mind if I do mine since I'm
No, go
here?
ahead.
Okay, my Facebook question is, I seem to get a lot of those romance scams. I don't know why.
Purple in your.
And you went through the whole scenario perfectly, because it's exactly what they say to me. Oh, I love your posting and all this kind of stuff, because I do post public. So my question is this: should I just simply ignore and block and delete or whatever? Or what I usually do is I respond and I say, I know I post public, but I do not friend anyone I do not know. And that's the end of it. If they text me again, I block them. Is that okay?
It depends on what your purpose is for your social media account is, right? So if you need it to be public, so maybe people who come to the church or something like that need to get a hold of you or want to ask questions of you, I think having it public like that totally makes sense. But I think it might be worthwhile that maybe have some sort of other, if you wanted to, social media account that's just for you and your friends and whatever. So I know other people and senior citizens that do that, except they keep them separate, ones for friends and family and ones because they have some sort of other need for a public Facebook account. But it's up to you. If you want to keep it open so people can reach out to you, just be cautious. But if you don't trust them at all, immediately just block them. Immediately block them.
Don't even bother to say, sorry, I'm not going to
That's,
respond to you.
yeah, that's what I do. Like, yeah, if it's somebody I know or have never seen before and they're trying to, yeah, I immediately block them. So like,
Okay.
yeah.
I just have a quick question in terms of, I often put a return address notice on my envelopes if I'm sending out mail. Should I not be doing that anymore? Even when you're sending a check to pay with, if often I do payments online, but would you recommend not using your return address on top of an envelope?
I think that it's commonplace to do that if you are in fact mailing it, and that's not terrible. You just need to understand, again, that is one piece of the puzzle if they're trying to steal your private information that they're going to get. Chances are for most of us, a simple query online via Google, they're going to get some of our personal identifying information, okay? But that's a piece of it. If you're then taking it and mailing it in a post office to someone else, you're cutting off at least half of the likelihood that it's going to get stolen because it's not going to be taken out of a box on your side. If it's going to a business or a PO box, it's probably going to be safer. And so it's not a big deal to have that. It's what's inside. If that's stolen, then are they also getting your name? Are they also getting a phone number? Are they potentially getting the numerics of an account from the check that's inside? That's when they start putting that puzzle piece together. And now they can utilize that. And that's been said, they take that, they hoard that information, they start collecting it and utilizing it. When we serve search warrants at houses, we will find ledgers with people's personal identifying information. And they will have written it all down in notebooks, and they will use that. It doesn't have to work but once. So
And one other question, like vehicle registration, I know we're supposed to keep that in our vehicles, right? And then you hear people breaking in and they've got everything, you know, they've got your information. So is it acceptable to just keep that on your phone now and not put it in your car?
New Mexico's not okay with that yet.
yeah, I would discourage that right now from the law enforcement perspective. You have that in the car.
Okay.
I know you can do like the insurance on your phone nowadays, so.
Insurance is
Yes.
one, your registration, if it's stolen, if a car is broken into and it's stolen, take those immediate steps to contact your motor vehicle department in whatever state you are in, notify them of it, ask for a flag to be placed on both your information and your vehicle's information in their database. You can file a report with law enforcement to do the same. If you want to be proactive, pull that credit report, let them know it, go to your financial institution and do the same.
And I'm sorry. I was just gonna say also, if you are still mailing checks out, you can always go to your financial institution and get a money order or cashier's check. So then your personal identification is not released. Just another best practice.
It's good.
So I was just gonna say something about the insurance thing too, and the stuff in your vehicle. New Mexico is really, especially Albuquerque, is really high for vehicle thefts. Just be mindful of what you keep in your vehicle. Don't leave checkbooks in there. Don't leave, a debit card or things like that. But as he said, make sure that you're notifying law enforcement, but think of things we have when I get a member that calls me in for some kind of fraud, right? If they say my checkbook was stolen, my car was broken into, well, okay, well, what else was in your car if your car was stolen? Did you have your garage door opener in there? They have your address, they have your garage door opener, kind of. And I think for most of us, we get so like single-minded on the fraud that's happening at that instant. So when we're trying to ask you questions outside of it, it's not to not take purpose away. We want to make sure you're okay otherwise, right? Yes, your new Senda account was compromised, but did you have an account with Wells Fargo? Did you have a credit card with Capital One? What else can we help you with? And so I hope that all of you, if you bank with Nusenda, that my team is doing that. But any financial institution really should be, we try not to be order takers. So we are going to question you. And it's not to think that you're doing something shady. It's not to question what you're doing. It's to make sure that we're getting the full picture of the information to be able to help you properly.
I am aware that our time is really up. One question has not come up, and I wonder if it can quickly be addressed. For those of us who have been scammed, is there any hope of getting money back?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It depends on the scam. It depends where the money goes. A lot of these scams will happen, particularly out of West Africa or other Eastern European bloc countries that do not have law enforcement or treaty agreements with the United States. So this is the federal task force officer coming out on this portion of this answer. They will purposely run their scams out of those countries because they don't have those agreements with the United States to be any kind of reciprocal law enforcement help. So we can try to subpoena or write warrants on entities over in those countries, and they will not oblige us at all. So these fraudsters are smart in doing that. So some of the scams, that there's no way we can get that back. There's other things that I think Danica can probably answer about how and why some frauds can be refunded and some cannot.
So for online banking, what we do is we pull your recent activity, what IP address do you utilize on a regular basis, what type of device that you own, is it an iOS, iPhone, is it an Android device? Do you log in through Google? Do you use Chrome? Things like that. If we can see that you participated in it, whether knowingly or unknowingly, you provided your information, you gave them access to your computer, you gave out any of the security codes, unfortunately, we will deny that claim. If we can find that you were compromised or hacked, then we'll go ahead and give credit back at that point. We do the same process goes with debit cards. If your physical debit card was utilized for something, that chip was used, the PIN number was used, it's a member liability at that point.
Good.
I was just gonna say, it really depends also on the type of fraud.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're talking about all kinds of different types of fraud, and so it depends.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a case by case issue.
This has been fabulous.
I just wanted to say one thing. I did read the material about not leaving your insurance and your ID in your car, and the reasons were very good. And it's about the garage door opener. You don't want them to know where you live if they break into your car. Their suggestion is that you take it and you either copy it and put the copies in your wallet and keep your regular ones at home in a safe place, but you do not leave them in your car, because irregardless, even if you don't have a garage door opener in there, if they break into your car, they've got you nailed. So it's best just to keep that stuff with you when you would be driving in a safe place, so anyway.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And this has been,
I think it was before the pandemic, you know, I knew that there was already like, you know, people were scamming other people, but I wasn't like, well, I hope it never happens to me, you know, but one day when I was at work, I did get a call, and right away, I didn't pick up on it until he went and, you know, I asked him, I said, well, you know, when he said, he goes, I want you to, it was from an old credit card, you know, and he asked me, he goes, well, you need to pay something. And in his voice, I could tell that he was an India man. And he asked me to send like $1,700 that would just hold my, you know, and they want to send to the collector, you know, people that collect the money. And I told him, and I said, but I don't have that kind of money, but I lied to him, you know. And I said to him, I go, where are you calling me from? And he goes, and I could hear people. And I don't know if it was a chat room or if it was just a room full of people that were scamming other people. But I felt that, you know, I go, this sounds like a bunch of baloney to me, you know? So then I said to him, I said, excuse me for 1 second. I go, are you trying to scam me? You know, I said that to him and he backed off, and I could, you know, like almost like say like, you know, I think I scared him. I think he is a scammer, you know. So then he goes, no, ma'am. And I said, yes, I think you are. I said, and what I'm going to do, I said, is I'm calling the Better Business Bureau. I said, when I hang up with you, I said, I'm hanging up now. And I hung up on him. Never got a call back. Never did nothing. And so that was it, you know. But I said, yeah, you are. You're trying to scam me. And he didn't say, he just got scared, you know. And it got quiet in that room. Good for you. Nice to end on a good story. And we really do have to respect the time of people and at this time. But we are deeply grateful to all of you who have come. This has been, I think, an extremely important session. And also very grateful to those of you on Zoom and to all of you who responded here. So why don't we give these folks a hand? Bye, everybody on Zoom.
Everybody in this room